Eunice Masson joins us now. She's in Cape Town. Eunice, so May 29th, that's not very long before the election's going to be held. The window that could have been chosen for the election was sometime between May and August. Why do you think Ramaphosa's chosen to hold it earlier rather than later?
Yeah, thank you, Georgia. I think it's really in the best interest of for the ruling ANC government to have the election sooner in May and not August for multiple reasons. There are many independent candidates and new parties joining this year's election, including that of former President Jacob Zuma's MK party. So having the elections in May give these newcomers less time to campaign and attract new voters. And on a more practical point, load shedding in South Africa is usually more frequent during winter months in June, July. So having the election after such a period would not count in the ANC's favor. It really is a race against time for the ruling party, who would want to stay in power and not lose votes to smaller rising political parties. And since the announcement tonight, the responses to having the election in May are positive, especially opposition parties who now have a clear timeline ahead of the elections.
Now, I mentioned a little earlier, Eunice, that a lot of South Africans are running out of patience with the ANC. So what are the stakes for the party here? Is their majority really in jeopardy, do you think?
Well, this year's election comes at a time when the governing party is at its weakest since 1994. The ANC has focused that they have made a lot of changes since 1994, but for the first time in 30 years, the ANC might not receive the votes that it always counted on. The country, like you've mentioned, is experiencing slow economic growth, rolling blackouts, failing service delivery, and high rates of corruption. And the country now might have the chance to change this. Politically, it's also challenging for the ANC at this moment, both internally and externally. As I mentioned, the MK party, which is supported by the former ANC president, poses a real threat to the ANC in terms of not necessarily winning the election, not at all, but stealing much needed votes. We also saw the establishment of the multi-party charter. That is a group of 10 opposition parties that have formed a coalition in the hope to push out the ANC this year.
Thanks very much. Eunice Masson there for us in Cape Town.